The Andraxian Empire had spanned the stars for nearly 3,000 cycles. From their crystalline throne world, the High Council controlled the fate of 100 lesser species. Their armadas were legendary, their technologies the envy of the Spiral Arms. To defy them was to be erased. And yet, as always in history, arrogance crept in unnoticed. News of humanity's first interstellar outpost reached the Andraxian Council as a minor report. The Terrans had, at last, limped their way to the galactic stage. Curious creatures, these humans flesh and bone, loud and emotional, driven by a history of violence and ambition. Their ships were crude, their numbers few. The Council's consensus was dismissive. Humanity posed no threat. Not now. Not ever. In the darkened council chamber, voices whispered, "Let them grow. Perhaps their spirit will amuse us for a time." No one could have predicted that their amusement would turn to terror. When the Council finally ordered an expedition to subjugate Earth's new colony at HFY, the plan was routine. A single Imperial dreadnought, a fleet of support ships, and the iron will of Andraxian law. Yet, from the moment they entered Terran space, things began to unravel. Aboard the Andraxian flagship Eclipse Sovereign, Lord Commander Vyrix surveyed his crew. The bridge thrummed with the pulse of alien machinery, every surface alive with shimmering data. Vyrix's second Jern approached. "The humans have not answered our hails," Jern said. Voice crisp, Vyrix regarded the planet on the main screen. Small blue world orbited by a handful of clumsy space stations. Typical. Prepare the Marines. Without warning, the Eclipse Sovereign sensors screamed. The image of HFY flickered, replaced by a mosaic of encrypted signals. A wall of Terran code. Then, a human voice, clear, cold, speaking in the Council's own language. "Welcome to Terran space. Turn back. This is your only warning." The bridge froze. Vyrix's spine stiffened. No species had ever spoken to him in such a tone. He snapped. "Jam their signal. Target their stations." The first barrage was meant as a lesson. Beams of white-hot energy lanced across space, pulverizing the orbital stations. The Andraxians watched with detached amusement as the debris rained on the helpless colony below. No human ships appeared, no resistance. Just silence. Vyrix leaned back, satisfied, pathetic. But then, as the smoke cleared, something impossible happened. The debris began to move. Fragments of the ruined stations twisted and snapped together, forging new shapes, new weapons, new ships, an unfolding dance of autonomous machines. Jern's hands trembled at his station. "Commander, their debris is self-repairing, adapting. Vyrix laughed. "You overestimate their primitive eye. An insect with delusions of—" His words cut short as the first of the reconstituted Terran drones launched itself at the Andraxian fleet. Explosions ripped through the outer hull of a support ship. Another drone swarmed through a hangar bay, tearing through armored Marines like paper. The Eclipse Sovereign's shields flared as more drones converged. Alarms shrieked. Vyrix's arrogance twisted into something darker, a flicker of fear. The flagship shuddered. An old human phrase echoed through the combs. "You were warned." And in the shadow of HFY, the Andraxians glimpsed the first hint of what humanity truly was. Not prey, not pests, but an enemy whose might was only beginning to reveal itself. Vyrix slammed his fist into the command panel, sparks leaping from ruptured consoles. The bridge was chaos, a tangle of frightened shouts, malfunction warnings, and the dull thunder of explosions echoing from below decks. He saw his ship, the pride of the Andraxian armada, being battered, swarmed by weapons born from the ashes of a ruined station. He roared, "All batteries! Eradicate those machines! Full power!" The Eclipse Sovereign's guns spat fury, vaporizing dozens of Terran drones, but for each one destroyed, 3 more emerged. The debris field danced guided by an invisible will, assembling into new forms with terrifying speed. Jern, blood running from a cut on his brow, stared in horror at his display. Commander, the drones, they're learning. Our countermeasures are being bypassed. Vyrex's claws dug into his seat. Impossible. But it wasn't. The human code alive within the wreckage was rewriting itself faster than their scanners could process. Targeting patterns changed by the second, each attack adapting, each defense nullified. The humans had weaponized their own destruction. On the planet below, HFY's colonists huddled in shelters, listening to the thunder above. Among them was Captain Rhea Morgan, a Terran engineer whose voice had warned the invaders. In the dim blue glow of an emergency ops room, she monitored the battle through a battered uplink dot. Her team cheered as enemy ships exploded on the feed. But Morgan's face remained grim. They're just testing us. They'll escalate. Sure. Enough. Vyrex, driven by anger and humiliation, ordered the deployment of the Andraxians' trump card, a planet-killer weapon, forbidden by galactic law, but never left at home. The order spread through the fleet. Arm the Cataclysm core. Deep within the Eclipse Sovereign, ancient machinery hummed to life. A black sphere, swirling with antimatter, was loaded into the main cannon. The weapon's energy rippled outwards, warping space, casting an unholy light on the battered battlefield. Morgan's eyes widened as her sensors detected the buildup. They're going to glass the colony. All defenses to maxima. Divert all power to the shield network. Get everyone underground. She spoke with the steady calm of one who'd prepared for this moment her whole life. Her hands flew over controls. Initiating a last-ditch defense protocol. Above, the Andraxian fleet formed a line, their ships pulsing with dark energy. Vyrex allowed himself a smile. Let this be a lesson. He fired. The Cataclysm core screamed across the void, a lance of destruction, capable of erasing continents. It struck the planet's surface and met nothing. The energy vanished, absorbed. By an invisible shell, Vyrex stared, slack-jawed. What? Morgan's team gasped. The shield held. Around the core's impact site, the very ground shimmered and healed. In orbit, the tearing debris field flared with blue light, absorbing the residual energy, channeling it back at the fleet. Dozens of Andraxian ships went dark as MP surges crippled their systems. The once mighty fleet now drifted, helpless, in the void. Morgan's voice returned, cold and certain. You never understood us. We don't fight alone. We become the storm. Vyrex's terror was total. As his own ship lost power, he realized the full truth. Humanity's strength was never in their ships or weapons. It was in their will to survive, adapt, and become unstoppable. And for the first time in the Empire's long history, an Andraxian commander called for help. The distress beacon from the Eclipse Sovereign raced across subspace, igniting alarms throughout the Andraxian Empire. No one had ever heard Vyrex's voice so desperate. Within hours, the Empire's High War Council mobilized an entire Armada 20 capital ships, hundreds of escorts, a fleet so vast it darkened the stars as it approached Terran space. They, Galaxy, watched in anticipation. No world had ever withstood such force. On HFY, Captain Morgan and her team worked round the clock. Terran Command dispatched reinforcements, automated defense satellites, advanced AI-controlled fighters, swarms of nano-drones, each arriving via warp relay. The colony was no longer alone. It had become the anvil upon which human destiny would be forged. As the Andraxian fleet arrived, its admiral, Lord Commander Jair, surveyed the remains of Vyrex's armada. Unacceptable, he spat. Deploy all forces. Wipe this infection from the stars. The assault began a hurricane of missiles, beams, and kinetic strikes. The colony's shield buckled under the onslaught. Terran defenses fought back with ruthless precision, but the numbers were overwhelming. Morgan's voice rang out, "Stand by for Phase 2. All across the system, human ships powered up. Some were old, salvaged freighters bristling with repurposed weapons. Others were the latest dreadnoughts, their hulls gleaming in the alien light. They fell into formation, outnumbered but unbroken. The battle raged for hours. For every Terran ship destroyed, a dozen Andraxian warbirds fell. Human tactics shifted constantly, adapting in real time, exploiting every weakness. The galaxies. Observers began to whisper. This was not the fight they had expected. On the ground, Morgan coordinated the defense, her voice calm. Initiate Project Aegis. Hidden deep beneath the colony, a Terran supercomputer unleashed its final protocol. Across the system, AI-controlled factories sprang to life, churning out new weapons, drones, and ships by the minute. Every loss became a lesson, every casualty a catalyst for adaptation. In orbit, the Andraxians watched in disbelief as human forces grew stronger the longer they fought. For the first time, they realized the humans weren't defending Aegis Vi. They were testing themselves. Admiral Jair ordered a retreat. But as the fleet turned, human ships pursued. The prey had become the predator. On every channel, the same message. You came to end us, but you've only made us stronger. And with every word, the legend of humanity's true might began to spread. Retreat turned to rout. The mighty Andraxian fleet, confident in its superiority, found itself hunted through the darkness. Human ships cut through their ranks with surgical efficiency, crippling engines, disabling weapons, forcing surrender. After surrender. Within the chaos, Lord Commander Jair tried desperately to regroup. Hold the line. They're just humans. But that word just was no longer a comfort. It had become a curse. His crew saw what Jair could not admit, that the humans were everywhere, in the comms, in the code, in the very metal of their own ships. One by one, Andraxian vessels blinked. Out of the fight, either destroyed or captured. Those that survived sent panicked messages home, their voices breaking. They're inside our systems. They know our plans. They're rewriting our orders. On Aegis Vi, Captain Morgan watched the battle unfold, her team silent around her. Even she was stunned at how quickly humanity's defense had become an overwhelming offense. Her hands shook as she sent the final command. Across the battlefield, Terran ships linked together, forming an immense, glowing lattice, energy arced. Between them, focused into a singular point of weapon, born from the fusion of human ingenuity and alien technology scavenged from the fallen. Morgan spoke, her voice a whisper to the void. For every world you burned, for every species you enslaved, this is for them. The beam fired. It didn't destroy. It disabled, rendering the entire Andraxian fleet powerless, leaving them adrift, unable to even self-destruct. The message was clear. Humanity had the power to annihilate, but chose not to. Mercy wielded as a weapon. Jair, now a prisoner aboard his own ship, stared at the Terran fleet arrayed before him. For the first time, he truly understood. This was not an enemy to be conquered, but a force to be feared. And across the galaxy, other empires took note. The era of Andraxian dominance was ending not with a bang, but with a Terran voice, calm and unyielding. In the days that followed, the shattered Andraxian fleet was escorted from Terran space. Prisoners were treated with dignity, given food and water. Their ships, though stripped of weapons, were left intact, a gesture both generous and terrifying. On Aegis Vi, celebrations erupted. Colonists emerged from shelters, singing and dancing beneath strange new stars. Children who had seen the sky burn now saw it peaceful, defended by ships bearing the Terran flag. Captain Rhea Morgan addressed her people in the galaxy. Her broadcast, translated into every known language, was clear and direct. To those who thought humanity weak or divided, you were mistaken. To those who come seeking war, know this humanity endures, adapts, and overcomes. We will not be prey. Our might is not in our weapons, but in our will. Her words traveled far. In distant systems, rebel groups and oppressed peoples found new hope. On Andraxian worlds, riots shook the old order. The High Council, once so secure, now faced a future they could not control. And for the first time, the galaxy's rulers understood. The end had always been coming. It was not the end of humanity, but the end of an age where others could dominate by force. In hidden corners of the cosmos, new alliances formed. Those who had once feared humanity now sought to learn from them. Even the Andraxian survivors, their pride broken, wondered if they could ever regain what they'd lost. As the stars wheeled overhead, Captain Morgan looked up, her eyes full of both sorrow and determination. She knew the fight was not over. There would be other threats, other wars. But from this day, no one would ever again doubt what it meant to challenge the true might of humanity. The legend spread, unstoppable a story, whispered across 1,000 worlds, a warning etched in the annals of galactic history. And so, when aliens saw humanity's true might, they realized their end was always coming.